So years ago, when the first Avatar movie came out, I went to the theater and I sat there completely shocked because I knew the story. I knew the plot, I knew the planet, and I said, how can they do this? This is so obvious. So, back in the 70s and 80s, tabletop role-playing games were the big thing. D&D. But there was a science fiction version of D&D that was the or science fiction alternative to D&D that was called Star Frontiers. It was made by the same people. And they had made an adventure that was about a planet called Volturnus. And in this adventure, the main character comes to the planet and has to unite all the various tribes in order to overthrow the miners and invaders who have no regard for the people or their cultures. And in order to do that, he has to become the chosen one, and then he'll unite all the tribes. And the natives of the planet in the game, they're very different. They're diverse. But for the movie, obviously, they sort of blended them to simplify it. And they are described as wearing brightly colored feathers, and each of them wears an amulet or a necklace, and they have no knowledge of electronics or electricity. Now, that might sound like, oh, those are common tropes that might not necessarily be from that game. But let me tell you the rest. So one of the species of people on the planet is described as being forest-dwelling bipeds. They live in the treetops, and they use the tree branches like a highway above the forest. And let's keep it simple, and we'll just call them the monkey people, which is kind of what they're referred to in the game. So there's another group of people, a separate group of people in the game, who have a tentacle with a series of nerve endings, and it lets them connect directly with the nervous system of other creatures, achieving a nerve link which allows them to communicate directly with the creature's mind. They ride animals, and these animals are described as being the size of horses, and they have a mind link with their mounts, and the riders have a close bond with their mounts. So this sounds suspiciously familiar, and not very many things would have accidentally come up with this concept. So when I saw this in the movie, I said, okay, this is pretty obviously the same thing. Well, let me tell you some more. So the creatures in the movie, I thought, oh, surely they're just making up the creatures for the movie. They did not. They took them directly from the game. So you have one that is described as being like a jackal. It stalks its prey and takes advantage of cover to hide their approach. And there's another one that's a large herbivore with a huge cylindrical mass of bone and cartilage used for crushing vegetation. It's usually docile and will not attack unless frightened or attacked directly. Usually you just find it grazing. And then there's the flying animals on the planet, which are described as being impatient and that they will attack sick or injured creatures like vultures. And they're smaller than the larger flying creatures. And in the game, the larger flying creatures are the ones who dominate the planet. But the largest, the ultimate land carnivore, is described as being something like a jaguar or a tiger with razor-sharp claws. It has an extra set of limbs attached to its shoulders. And it is a terrible opponent. It has incredible speed and viciousness. Yet the people of the planet consider it sacred. And they have a name for it. They call it the Quick Death, which is very similar to the name in the movie, that it's the bringer of fear or something like that. So the character has to defeat or overcome one of these animals in order to be considered the chosen one and a member of the tribe. Once he has bested the undefeatable monster, the animal, then he is able to unite all the different tribes for the epic battle that is coming up. The people of the planet are regarded as having a strange religion. Their religion involves a goddess whose name begins with an E, who represents order and the forces of nature. And the people, her people of the planet, they are her chosen ones. And their rituals involve group singing and chanting. And sometimes they will see visions, which they call true visions, or they hear voices. So among the native people, when one of them dies, he's believed to have been transformed. They avoid considering a tribe member dead. They merely assume a new form. They see everything as part of the one. The whole world and all the living creatures are all one. And this is in the game. And their most important ritual is called the Time of Oneness. And during the Time of Oneness, they mind link with each other. It's a tribal mind link, and they undergo a mystical experience, seeing everything as part of the great oneness. The tribe has sacred grounds that may not be touched or walked upon by any outsiders. And their goddess represents order, the forces of nature. At the end of the game, it has suggested additional adventures. And one of these says that they have legends of other people who are like themselves, but they dwell in the sea. So make of that what you will. All right, well, I'm going to end this here. Thanks for watching.